It's great to be here for the Bangalore premiere of Velvet Revolution. I'm Nupur Basu, and I don't know how to really describe myself, but I guess I don't know why we say hats also, but well, yes, I am a journalist, a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, a media educator, so sort of, traveling many geographies.
Great. So, as I was telling you, one of the things that we are interested here in this institution is to look at people's various practices and what that process is. So, my first question to you would be your practice as a journalist. How did you come to it? What led you to the calling of journalism?
Well, I was a debater in school and college days. And for me, of course, parents were always, like you have to join the civil service. I think all of us have been through that grind. And our whole thing was to run in the other direction because we were all mini rebels in a sense. And the colleges that we went to, I went to Miranda House in Delhi University, and that was like a hotbed of rebellion in many respects. I mean, this was a college in the 60s. They decided to ban, beauty contests. So as feminist as that. So obviously the choices before us in terms of career were going to be in line with what one's belief was shaping up. And I had two choices, one to be a lawyer and to be a journalist. And I decided that I will do journalism because I felt that in law sometimes you do have to compromise on the truth simply to defend your client. I need never do that in journalism, I thought. I need never tell a lie if I choose not to. So I chose journalism.
Great. And in your career as a journalist, you worked with both the print and the television media. Could you tell us how that transition happened, your experience with the print media and then the television, and to your mind, when you look back now, the pros and cons of both?
Yes, well, I started in the early years in print, and that's where I was headed to. There was no television in the country then, except the state-owned Doordarshan at that point. So there was no television to join, in a sense, a free television media of the kind we would imagine existing in other countries. I'm talking about the early 80s. 82, I entered the newsroom of the Indian Express. That was my first choice of the newspaper because I felt this was a paper which gave you the grounding to do investigative journalism, to do the kind of journalism, development journalism. As long as you had your documents in place, you were going to be on page one. Nobody, no force was going to stop your story or stop your growth. With that belief, I went in there. Said Naqvi was my mentor. He chose me for the job. And well, yes, and then I had a 9-year-long run in the Indian Express. I never wanted to go anywhere. But in the interim, I started flirting with television. I started doing interviews for Doordarshan. They would invite me as a journalist to interview different people, just as you are doing now, in the mid-80s, late 80s. So I would go, and somehow Indian Express didn't mind because they were happy to see me interviewing V.K.R.V. Rao or, whoever, some celebrity, economist or otherwise. So I had that free run, and I started, because you have to demystify all the wires, the camera, all the technology that goes with it. So that demystification of the technology I managed to crack. And then in early 90s, when television in a sense started coming in the nascent years, I started thinking of making the move. And in the early years, I actually worked, India went through this amazing phase where there was no private television, but we had the mid phase of using a cassette. So VCR owning households could watch a Eyewitness or a News Track or a ITV's India View, and then that was the thing that you talked about in cocktail parties. So middle India, rich India had access to a news which nobody else had. And it was very interesting, but it pushed the boundaries in a sense, because it created the demand for news in the private sector, news that was unbridled and free. And then in mid-90s, I started reporting. I happened to be in London, in Cambridge, and I started reporting for World This Week, NDTV's flagship program. And then there was no looking back, because when I came back, they just wanted me to join NDTV. And then that was the next 12 years in NDTV.
So my question to you would be, you made the transition from print to, and you still have a relationship with it, even now in a different way, but what is it you felt in your practice as a journalist that you could do as part of television, which you may not have been able to do as part of print, or vice versa, I mean, when you look back now?
I have a very interesting story, which, well, since you've sort of provoked me, I will say. One day from the Indian Express newsroom, I ran off and went to watch a cricket match in Chinnaswamy Stadium. And I told the news editor that I wasn't feeling well. I lied actually. I just said that one, but not in journalism, but in practice. We really wanted to see that match. And we went there, and in fact my husband had also come. And we're sitting in this gallery, and for some reason the DD cameras, I don't know why, they just went on focusing on me. And imagine you have a single channel which is being beamed throughout the country. So the calls didn't stop after that, saying, we saw you on TV, you were watching a match, relatives, friends. And I said, oh my God, oh gosh, when did this happen and how did it happen? Next morning when I go to work, my news editor says, how is the stomach ache? And I knew what had happened, that he too had seen that I had actually gone for a cricket match, and I was like, I'm so sorry. But I realized the power of the image. And I said, what the hell? Here we are struggling, bonded labor, going after, poachers and doing all sorts of stories all over. And then we have to literally struggle for feedback. And here you appear for 30 seconds on television, and the whole country is sort of calling you saying, I mean, that's an exaggeration. I'm just saying, the number of calls. I said, this is a medium that I think one should. And of course, as I said, I was already doing, but I said, this is a very powerful medium. If I can tell my stories on this and not just be sitting there watching a match, but I can. And, so I was pushed into. Your question on how the transition was, I think many of us who came to journalism, to television journalism, not many, but some of us were from print, and I think we brought with us all the training and the foundation of good practice journalism, which to a large extent, if you've just trained in the technology, you don't bring, because we were bringing in all these, like for example, I remember Rajdeep was coming from print, and there were others, and we were and you also have to be comfortable in front of the camera, and that helped.
So it's interesting you use this space, because that's something I also believe in, this thing of the power of the image. So my automatic question to you after that is that what also led you to documentary filmmaking? I mean, could you speak a little bit about, it's kind of the same medium, but it's not, it's very different.
It's serendipity, Subhashri. It's interesting. There was one phase when I was doing it for the cassette phase, ITV's India View, reporting out of South India. And then Vinod Dua had started a program on DD called Parak. And I remember him calling me and saying that, speak. I said, I cannot speak Hindi. He said, if Rakhi can speak Hindi, yahan aao, then you can also do it, I said, okay, fine. And I actually started reporting for Parak. And I cannot tell you what a sensational program that was. Because for the first time, we were bringing images of caste conflict and, name it, all our national shames, on to Doordarshan through this program called Parak. One of the stories I did for Parak was on the women's struggle against liquor in Andhra Pradesh and in Nellore district in Dobbagunta. It was an amazing grassroots movement struggle, and I did that, and the story had huge ramifications, huge feedback. And of course, I was absolutely inspired by what those women were doing, and what a lot they had to lose and how they were fighting it. I was truly inspired. And I happened to be in London at some point, and another friend of mine, Reena, who's always encouraged me, said that give this idea as a film to TVE, Television Trust for Environment. And so I remember landing there and giving them. They just saw my report from Parak. They just viewed it and said, "You're making the film for Beijing." So they were doing shots for the Beijing conference in '95, and I made the film. The film went on to win an international award in Harare in Zimbabwe. I wasn't even there. I didn't even know the film had been entered. I just heard it over All India Radio, and next thing NDTV called, and they were putting it on the bulletin that I had got this award. So it was a marriage of right through NDTV years. Every 2 years I would take a break, and I used to say, I need to oxygenate my mind, get away from the soundbite journalism, and I'll come back richer to the bulletin, I would tell Radhika Roy, and they would laugh and say, go ahead, I said, I won't waste my time. I'll go there, do something good and come back. So, I had that privilege. Everybody supported me.
That's lovely. So, from that journey coming to this moment, Velvet Revolution, which is a film that we're going to watch this evening. It's the Bangalore premiere. Can you tell us how, because it's also a film that you're the executive producer, but it's also been made by short segments by other women. Can you tell us about the process and the journey, and a journalist like you, who's a documentary filmmaker also making a film about women journalists, so it's mirroring each other in many ways.
That's right, a lot of navel gazing happening here, but I didn't shy away from it. I think when International Association of Women in Radio and Television, of which we a loose network of women journalists in radio, print and filmmakers, like all of us are members of that, when they came up with their third documentary idea for women in media in the changing times that we live in, I came on board as the executive producer. I decided that I really wanted a sharp gaze at something. You need a theme, otherwise you can just go all over the place. And I decided to sort of hone in on the conflict theme, because looking around, where are women journalists operating, I thought? They are in a hugely conflicted landscape all over. And conflict, Subhashri, it was interesting. I didn't think of conflict as just one of a battle zone. I thought of it also in terms of it's a psychological conflict as well. So when our India person who came on board later, Deepika Sharma, pitched the idea of doing a piece on the Dalit women in Chittur and how they're bringing out a magazine talking about caste discrimination. We thought that's brilliant, because it's not just about all these women who are going and covering wars. That's not a straight jacket sort of narrative that I wanted either. So having said that, having got that sharp gaze, I pitched my vision, and then we had 18 proposals. As you know, only our members can apply for this project. So we had 18 proposals, of which we chose 3. Right from the beginning, I said, if I make this film, there's somebody I want on this film, and that was the Bangladesh blogger Abhijit Roy's wife. And I said, whatever it takes, whoever needs to go there, we will get her on the film, and I need to convince her. It was important because I'd heard about her. I'd heard that like 4 months into her husband's death, the address she had made in London, I'd heard about it through my sister, and we talked about her incessantly. And I hadn't met her, but she just touched me, across the, the borders. And I said, she's somebody. I just, as a journalist, you just tuck away an idea and you say, I'll come to it. And when this film came up, I said, this is the time. I have to get Bonya on board. What made her do, despite what she's been through, what made her go back to edit Muktomona? Why did she take on what Abhijit was so brutally severed from? What made her do it? What drives her? And luckily we had a language in common, Bengali, And I managed to speak to her and convince her. And then we had a filmmaker from Canada. When she agreed, when Bonya agreed, we sent the Canada filmmaker. I said, you go across. We don't want the proposal you've given, but we've got an even better one for you. Will you do that? It was a bit of a gamble, but she did a fantastic job, and you will see it in the film.
Yeah. Before my last question, I just want to again understand the experience of post-production for you, right? These disparate stories, because I've watched this from Cameroon to the Bangladesh story to two spaces in India to journalists in Canada. What was it like actually? Because a film has its own narrative in a piece of work, to bring these disparate stories and make a cohesive structure.
If I may say, my experience, many years of experience in television, in being able to work with tight deadlines, to be able to get to the root of a story in a short and direct way, all that definitely helps. Then on the other hand, I also had a documentary experience where I had made a film called Michael Jackson Comes to Manikganj. It was about the impact of satellite television on South Asia. And I had made this film. It was a bi-media project, very interesting. Two British historians wrote a book on it, and I made the documentary. And I had filmed from Peshawar in Northwest Frontier Province right up to Kandy, 5 countries: Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and what's the 5th one? Sri Lanka, yes. So 5 countries. And I had decided, because I had come on board, there were other competitors for director, but since I had come on board as the India, had been chosen from India, I didn't want the others to feel alienated. And I decided as a director, and I took that call, that in each country I would film with a local crew. Everybody had said, how can you do that? There'll be such unevenness. And, there were many critiques on, how will you? I said, no. For me, what is important is the spirit of things. Rest, I will manage. I will work on them and ensure that. And then even that, you see, we then, with all the disparate shooting in 5 different countries, I was the unifying force as the director in all 5 countries in that case. But we managed, and it was just, it caused a lot of waves. People really loved the film. It was the first of its kind on looking at a 10-year impact of satellite TV, where women, the whole name, Michael Jackson Comes to Manikganj, emerges from a village in Bangladesh, where we're just filming in this village a wedding, and the girl's family is coming there holding a fish in their hand and a television set on their head. And I asked this old man there, one of the patriarchs in the family, what music do you listen to? And he said, Amra Michael Jackson Suni, and in that Bengali dialect. And I was like, what? I actually ask him again, and he repeats the same. And then we see Michael Jackson singing in Bengali. He's been dubbed and he's singing. So that was the impact of satellite TV, where we had taken from the West, but we had put it in our own language, And so, and coming back to the thing of the unevenness and all that, it was all sorted out at the editing table, and it's not something that cannot be done. So I had that experience. My editor, Reena, who had edited that film as well, had that experience. And this time we also had Nirmal Chandar joining us. And yeah, we took it as a challenge and did it.
Yeah, and I guess that's what the spirit of truly collaborative filmmaking is, which this film is representative of. My last question is, any words of advice you might have for people who want to be journalists, young people who want to work television or print, any words through your experience?
Yeah, I think essentially, if you want to be a journalist, I have 3 words, fire in your belly. Unless you have that, don't come into this profession, because you'll not be able to withstand the pressures. What you will see today in Velvet Revolution is fire in the belly, in the testimonies of all these women who we have filmed here. And that is something that is so essential. Otherwise, you'll just be lost in the crowd. You'll be one of those, when you entered the profession and when you left, nobody will know. But if you really want to impact, and you really want to, as we old-timers believed, that we could change society, we could change the lives of our people, marginalized, who don't have anything. I mean, we were schooled to do our journalism based on, write for people who cannot read a newspaper, speak on television for people who don't own a television. That was the foundation on which we operated. Now it is all about, you write for people, who are rich, stinking rich, put them on page 3 and your paper will sell. Or in television, do your reporting, or less and less reporting is happening anyway. Talk for those who will buy the Mercedes, the ad which is just going to come up. So the whole landscape of journalism has changed, and it's really harming journalism. If we have to go back to basics, if we have to believe in what journalism really stands for, we need people who are passionate about the profession.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.